Hi class, Mr. Stewart here. What you should be seeing on your screen is an introductory PowerPoint slide for this chapter. There's not going to be any instructor video for this course, but you are going to have audio kind of behind this PowerPoint here. And I'm not going to go through every particular slide in the PowerPoint. I'm going to draw some attention to several particular things. I'm going to try to keep this first week's integrity lecture fairly concise. I hope I'm going to try not to go over about 10 minutes or so. I just want to get you acquainted to kind of the process of how this is going to work and to some of the introductory parts of Chapter 1. Now, from here on out, understand I'm probably going to be covering some pretty important course material in these integrity videos and audio sessions. But at this point, some of you probably don't even have your textbook, and some of you who have your textbook probably here on the first day of class you've not yet read Chapter 1. That's something you're going to be tasked with doing this week. So I'm just going to try to kind of get us started here with what course expectations are and talk briefly about some of the aspects of Chapter 1. So just remember that during week 1 you do need to get something graded, submitted in the course. That is how I will count you absent or present. Is if you get something submitted during this first week, then you will be counted present in the class. If you don't get anything gradable submitted during week 1, then you're going to be dropped from the course for non-participation, unless you have contacted me or made some sort of alternate arrangement. So if nothing else, even if you don't have your textbook, get into those discussion boards and just make a stab at it. Use Google. Google is a great source of information. You should be able to find out enough information to even get something submitted, or just look up an article about security, summarize it, tell me how it ties into the material for the week, and get that submitted. As long as you get something gradable submitted by the first week here, you will not be counted absent. All right. This class is Introduction to Security, and really it's more of a overview or a survey class about the private security system, kind of like some of you may have had Introduction to Criminal Justice, which covers a whole lot of aspects of the criminal justice system. This particular course will cover a lot of aspects of the private security industry. And it's pretty interesting that we put this particular industry in with criminal justice, but it's kind of been a long-standing connection between the field of security and the field of criminal justice and policing. In fact, they share many of the same roots, which we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. So, it's important for you to understand also that the word security really has taken on a new meaning since September 11, 2001. Prior to that date, we all probably had an idea of what security was, and typically it was maybe an elderly or overweight security guard on a post, looking disheveled and unkempt and drawing a paycheck and just be there because somebody needed a warm body. Now that's really not what the security industry was, but that was the public perception of the security industry. So with that being said, since 9/11/01, we've kind of had a resurgence in the importance of security, because there's no way that law enforcement, both local, state, and federal, can protect every asset that we need to be protected here in the United States. So that leaves a lot of asset protection up to the field of private security. And believe it or not, protecting some of those assets, something like a food production facility or an electrical substation, is not something law enforcement is going to do. So private security has to take up that slack, and as such, private security fills a niche in kind of our Homeland Security plan. So the field of private security is a large, multifaceted business that continues to grow every year, and it's well past the days of the solitary guard standing watch at a guard shack somewhere, or looking in lunch boxes in some sort of manufacturing facility to make sure people aren't taking stuff out or bringing stuff in. It's gone so far beyond that we have so many different jobs in the security industry at this point that, yes, we still have security guards, but we have security personnel, we have security professionals, we have facility security officers, we have investigations, you name it, and it's been privatized at this point. So just understand that the field of private security is so much more than just that old security guard sitting a post or standing a post somewhere. We've even seen a lot of growth in career aspects of the security field. People are getting certificates in security at college. Believe it or not, you can get one of those here at Calhoun. We have a certificate in security. So, and it's hopefully it's going to be soon revised into a certificate of security management, so that people that decide to go into the security field, maybe they don't want to be a police officer, but they want to work somehow in the criminal justice field, so you go into security, and that way you'll be able to be promoted very quickly once you get that certificate or that extra education, so to speak. We've also had a lot of advances in technology in regard to security over the last several years since 9/11. It's become automated and computerized, just like everything else in our world has. Understand that every single business, whether it's a single-person operation or a multi-billion-dollar corporation, all have security concerns, and these are concerns that the security industry can address in some shape, form, or fashion, whether it be hiring a security officer, getting a security site survey, protecting information, protecting the actual physical location, you name it. We see a lot of usefulness for the security industry in the business world today. So let's define what security is. Security fits into one of Maslow's hierarchy of needs categories, and you see it's number 2 here on your PowerPoint presentation. And security means safety from violence. Now that's not all security is, but in regard to Maslow's hierarchy of needs categories, that's what security is to be safe. We want to make sure that we're safe. I mean, if you're sitting in your classroom, don't you want to make sure that there's not going to be an armed gunman come onto the school grounds and start shooting people? If you're sitting in McDonald's, you don't want somebody to start shooting up the McDonald's. If you're sitting in the airport, you don't want a terrorist to come on the airplane with you. So all of those things are directly related to this whole idea of safety and maintaining some level of safety, no matter what. And that's where security can assist. Private security, understand this, is profit-oriented. It's made up of companies whose sole goal and aim in business is to enrich their pocketbook, so to speak, is to make money. And how they're going to make that money? They're going to provide a needed service to those other agencies or businesses that need security. Huntsville Hospital is probably one of the more notable venues of private security here in the Huntsville area. The Huntsville Hospital system employs a lot of private security officers to maintain a safe environment within that hospital. So if you get a chance, do a walk through Huntsville Hospital, take note of the security officers and see what they do. So private security meets the needs of individuals, businesses, institutions, and organizations, and any other entity whose security needs cannot be met by public police officers. I already stated that, but I think it's just important that you understand that security fills that void, because publicly paid police officers are not going to be able to do privately paid things legally. Now we do see that there is some crossover. We see that some people some agencies, law enforcement agencies, will allow their officers to be hired out. They let them wear their uniform, drive their patrol car, and do private security work. However, we don't suggest that anymore. That used to be the only people that did security work was police officers. We don't suggest that anymore because the focus and mission of law enforcement is different than the focus and the mission of private security. Private security's focus and mission is to observe, report, and document, basically, and try to prevent. Whereas law enforcement's mission is to investigate, catch the bad guys, and prosecute them, and everything in between that. So you see, there's a different focus and mission for law enforcement than private security. I'm not going to go over the influences on the evolution of security. You guys can read that in your text. You can look at this on the PowerPoint. And I'm not going to look at kind of the historical aspects of how private security got involved. I mean, that's straightforward. You guys can read that. I will be happy to answer any questions you might have. You can send me a message through course messages in regard to any questions you have over course material. And of course, we're going to be discussing it in the discussion boards as well. But I don't see any need to go over that which you are responsible for reading for, especially this first week when you're going to have a lot thrown at you trying to get back into the swing of things of school. Do understand some of these influences on security, like some of the things that happen historically that cause security to evolve, and even some of those things actually cause law enforcement to evolve. That what started out originally as more of a private security effort evolved into public law enforcement. However, there's still a niche available for both of those. Make sure you're familiar with the Bow Street Runners and Henry Fielding, and Sir Robert Peel. Sir Robert Peel, you should remember him if you've taken Introduction to Criminal Justice, which is CRJ 100. He's responsible for the creation of the very first police department ever. We've seen that private security evolved not only in Europe but also into the United States, with such companies like the Pinkertons, with the Railroad Police, with some of the other private investigation and private security companies that were formed in the 1800s. It was all to fill a very narrow niche, a very narrow need to provide security for certain things, which public police just were not everywhere. We just didn't have that many of them. So we had to have some people who were commissioned in order to provide security for certain things. So make sure you are familiar with kind of that historical evolution of private security here in the United States. Also look at the connection between World Wars I and II and private security, and how they had an influence on security, how we began to use private people to gather intelligence, because there was no way for the actual official, publicly paid people to gather some of that intelligence. And also how we began to secure certain aspects and facets of our country with private security during those times. And here's something to take a look at. If you go to, I believe it's www.asis.org or asis.net or com. I can't remember which one. I think it's ASIS dot something is the website. But that is the national or international trade organization for private security. The private security field here in the United States, actually worldwide. Check those guys out. We do have a local chapter that meets once a month. They have a very strong membership here in Huntsville. If anybody's interested in joining as a student member, please contact me and I can put you in contact with them. I think it's pretty cheap. It's $25 or something a year, and you get a lot of benefits and some scholarship opportunities and things like that. But understand what As Is has done for the field of securities. It has really got us to be held to a higher standard. So instead of just allowing anybody to do any security work like it used to be, we now have certifications and classifications and licensing requirements. So we've seen a lot of evolution in the field of private security just in the last several years. So make sure you check out As Is. Okay, there's our website, www.asisonline.org. They do publish a really cool magazine called Security Management. It's a really good resource for everything security, basically. As you're reading this chapter, make sure you look at the different types of private security, and you can differentiate between those. Know the difference between corporate security and cyber security, the difference between healthcare security and loss prevention, etc. So make sure that you're familiar with those. Make sure that you familiarize yourself with what the entry-level positions, the mid-level positions, and the top-level positions are in the security industry. Please make sure you know the difference between proprietary and contract security. I mentioned Huntsville Hospital earlier. Huntsville Hospital is an anomaly because they use both. They actually have their own proprietary security force that their management runs, but they also contract with a security company. And typically, the way they do it is they hire their proprietary security officers from the contract company. So basically, the contract company is kind of like a probationary period to see if we like this person, see if we want to continue them with our employment with our own agency. So we'll use them with the agency that we're not really bound to. With the company, we're not really bound to. If we don't want that person, we don't have to hire that person any longer, and they'll have to place them somewhere else or lay them off. So make sure that if you get a chance, check out Huntsville Hospital Security Services and know the difference between that proprietary and the contract security. There's more information here on the slides in regard to that, and that's what Huntsville Hospital is what's on your slide here is a hybrid. Hybrids are simply a combination of proprietary and contract, and proprietary employees act as management and use contract employees as line officers. That's kind of what Huntsville Hospital does, but not exactly. But it's kind of along that line. Just look FYI in regard to what the average compensation for security professionals is. Now, notice that this doesn't say for security officers. A security officer is not going to make a lot more than minimum wage. They're just not. Because it's not a difficult job, it's not an involved job. You don't have to have a large amount of knowledge, nor do you have to have management expertise to be a security officer. However, if you want to move up in the field, then you probably need to get some education. You need to get some experience under your belt, and it is not uncommon for facility security officers here in the Huntsville area for the defense contractors to make over $100,000 a year. So there is definitely some good paying jobs out there in security. Also, read the section on regulation of private security. Up until just a couple of years ago, Alabama did not have any regulation of private security, and then they enacted a licensing requirement that any security company that had over 100 officers, they had to be licensed, and all their officers had to be licensed. And as of September 1, 2012, every security officer in the state of Alabama now has to be licensed. So there is a kind of a track to get your license. It's not terribly difficult. Most agencies will put on a class, or they'll send you somewhere to get the license, your class, and then you have to take a test. And then once you take the test, you pay the state some money, and they'll send you your license. Basically, it holds you at least to a minimum level of standards. So that convicted felons aren't being security officers, so that at least they know that you can read and write and be able to do some basic math and things like that in order to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, and things like that, in order just to be employable. Basically, it keeps those people, some of the people who really don't need to be working security, out of security. It just holds us to a standard. Same way with private investigator. Most states now have licensing requirements for that. Alabama recently enacted that. You can look at different states and see what their licensing requirements are. In a nutshell, that's chapter 1. And I know I went over that very quickly, but this week I'm giving you an introduction. So please read chapter 1. Please get some graded work done, if not all of the unit 1, week 1's work done during this week. And I'll see you in Integrity Lecture next week, and we'll get deeper into the meat and potatoes of this course at that time. And again, if you have any questions, problems, issues, or concerns, please reach out to me. You can send me an email through course messages or through my Calhoun email address, or you can text me or call me or whatnot. All right, guys. See you next week. Have a good week. Bye-bye.